everybody. Welcome to Channel Zero. I'm Clyde Lewis. We're glad to have you here today. And, I was just thinking to myself as I was coming in Thanksgiving holiday, I hope all of you have a great Thanksgiving holiday. It's certainly a time to give thanks that we're still alive, that we're hopefully doing well. I know a lot of people are suffering this holiday season, and a lot of people are certainly concerned about what's happening with COVID-19. And I was thinking to myself that, 2020, the whole year itself is reading like every crazy conspiracy theory that's been out there beforehand. And I know I've been doing this now for many years, doing this for 25 years, going on 30 if you count my entire career of doing radio and TV. And it's like this rabbit hole. You look at the internet and you think to yourself, you're dropping acid or something, because it just doesn't add up. I mean, you can't come down from this trip because it's actually happening. You're in the middle of this weird trip, and you don't know how you're going to get out of it. You don't know what to do. I mean, we're living in times where it's becoming more difficult to live and play well with others. It's just certainly experience that I've been having, and fear and tensions are high. It's as if we're feeding this, and we are. A lot of people are feeding this because of paranoia. We are devouring the same drug, and we're abusing the same drug. And what is most disconcerting is that they're, where I'm broadcasting here in Oregon, they've decriminalized a lot of the drugs. Seriously. I mean, the thing that's interesting is if you're in possession of heroin in this state, it's legal. If you have tabs of LSD, it's legal. If you have in your possession methamphetamine, it's legal. But if you're in possession of a butterball turkey that feeds about 7 people, you're going to be fined up to $1,250 in possible jail time for having too many people in your house. And the governor here has encouraged tattletales. They've encouraged people to turn each other in. And what it does is it brings about tension, it brings about unhappiness, it brings about just tensions that shouldn't be felt during a holiday season. And I mean, it is over the top. I mean, you would ask yourself, is this over the top? Well, they say, well, not at all. It's part of being, I guess you could say, responsible. But when you're a conspiracy theorist, or you've been involved with conspiracy history for as long as I have, or when you listen to conspiracy theories, you tend to think that everything sounds crazy, and you hear from the media that everything sounds crazy, even when things aren't crazy. And that's the thing that is most important to understand here, is that, we live in a crazy world. It's been said, predicted by a lot of conspiracy theorists, that this is where we're going to go. I mean, remember back in the good old days of 2019, and, think about it. Anyone who talked about microchip implants, Americans being forced to show travel papers, or at least proof of being, inoculated or vaccinated or what have you, the thought of re-education camps, the thought of REX-84, all these things, all these crazy conspiracy theories. Whoever thought that when 2020 rolled around that these conspiracy theories weren't so crazy after all? Who would have thunk it? I mean, it's just an amazing thing to think about here. I mean, and I'm not talking about, well, sure, we can talk about UFOs as well. I mean, the disclosure, the little bit of disclosure we got in 2017 with regard to the Tic Tac UFOs. Now President Trump wants to, I guess, limit what we hear about the UFOs now. I wonder if I'm just wondering when all of this is going to stop, when all this craziness and madness is going to stop, because I know that 2020 is one of those years, and it's going to be one of those years where you can't trust people. There are a lot of people that you're not going to be able to trust, and people that you thought you could count on are going to certainly betray you. People you thought you could trust, you completely just go, wow. I thought I had people in my corner. I thought I had people who were supporting me. And I mean, did you really think that you would ever live in a country where the government would tell private business owners when and how they could operate, where workers would be told you can no longer work here, and you no longer can go out, and you no longer can do things because it's for your own good? Being poor, being downtrodden is for your own good. Welcome to 2020. This is what we're doing right now. 22 million jobs were lost, and only 42% of those were recovered by last August when the country began to reopen again. But millions of lost jobs now are going to be permanent losses. And businesses across the country are going to fold under the weight of the restrictions that either don't allow them to operate or the money problems of their former customers. These are stark realities about what we're dealing with right now. More than 10 million Americans now are currently categorized as temporarily out of work. But historically, 30% of people who tell the Labor Department that they are temporarily unemployed never get their job back. And they're probably not going to get their jobs back. The sad thing is that people who are counting on businesses to reopen their doors may be surprised to find that a temporary loss has become a permanent loss. It'll be a permanent thing. And that goes for jobs as well. It's not looking good. And I wish I could tell you that there's a miracle on the way. But the only miracle that can be found in the choices we make is that we need to say to ourselves that nothing is inevitable, that things are temporary. But of course, fear is working for those who are in power right now. And this Thanksgiving, people are going to go hungry. And of course, the leaders of the world, they're hungry too, but they're hungry for power. And they are going to be satiated, I'm sure, because of COVID-19. We have not only, in the United States, people have not only have become unemployed, but we also have business owners who've lost everything. And as we go into the second round of lockdowns across the country, across the United States, it's not a stretch of the imagination to think that some of the small businesses that have thus far managed to stay afloat will succumb to the economic effects of these mandates that have been produced, taking with them even more jobs and plunging even more people into poverty. Poverty is a vicious cycle. We know this. And one seemingly small thing can suck those who are struggling into a vortex of fees and penalties from which emerging seems impossible. It's hard to imagine this. And the media continues to peddle fraud. They peddle fraud. They ignore other things that are fraudulent within their own agendas. And this is unfortunate. Talking points be damned. We live in an era of massive fraud where the transnational wealthy elites, led by the American war and propaganda machine, continue to try and convince the gullible that they are going to be your savior, that they're going to save you, that they're saviors of humanity, even as they lie, even as they cheat. And I promise you that millions of people will be dying. We've got thousands now with COVID-19, but you can imagine what more are going to die for other reasons, whether it be psychologically, feeling depressed, feeling hopeless, feeling like they can't win. These are the things that people are going through. Death and horror are actually attention getters now, certainly. And this is why we see more deaths. This is why we hear more reports on CNN. We hear more deaths and recovery rates. We hear about refrigerated trucks and bodies that are still in the refrigerated trucks. And that's the thing, is that there's no way. It's hard, actually, to keep the faith. And that's the point. Keeping the faith, having faith is what science does not want you to have. They don't want that right now, especially when science continues the charade of pushing crazy doctrines. And they do so like they're doomsday cultists. I don't know if you've noticed this, but they're like doomsday cultists. They say that the planet has not got long. What was it? A year or two ago, it was the planet doesn't have 12 years. Now, to make it more immediate, they tell you that you don't have long to live because of COVID-19, because of an invisible virus, because of something that they think they control, but they can't control. With the mandates they give us, with mask wearing and separation and arbitrary rules that they seem to push, and people get punished for those rules. People get told that they can't go back to work. People are told they have to vacate a building. People are told they have to change their schedules. People are told that, this is what the process is. And no one is immune from that process. You can do everything you can to be immune, or at least try to be immune from COVID-19, but what you can't be immune from is the fear that those around you have, and the enforcement and coercion that continues to happen, where people feel that they have to be these warriors, these heroes, these saviors that are going to save you from yourself. And that's what they do. They are thinking with fear rather than love. And that's been something that I've been pushing too, is that, love is supposed to trump fear. But it's hard to trump fear when we're certainly in this situation where I consider it like Stockholm syndrome, where we're beginning to sympathize with our captors. We're beginning to sympathize for those who want to enslave us. Here we are. You go back to November 22nd. I'm going to get into this in a little bit, but November 22nd is a year that most conspiracy theorists are aware of. And I didn't really talk about it on my show because it happened, the 22nd fell on a weekend. But you go back to the assassination of John F. Kennedy, which perhaps no major incident in U.S. history has generated more uncertainty and skepticism towards official accounts of what really happened. And if you can go back to 1963, if you can go back to that Dallas killing in 1963, you will understand that it's been 55 years of cover-up, 55 years of manipulating the media, 55 years of trying to paint this situation in a different light rather than looking at the facts. Questioning the Warren Commission was anathema back in the day. The media tried to cloud things up, trying to sidetrack you, coming up with mythologies and strange conspiracy theories that they even planted themselves. You take a look at, there was a 2013 Gallup poll that showed that a clear majority of Americans still doubt, after all these years, they still doubt the Warren Commission's determination that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone as the accused sniper, with many suspecting that others in government organized crime and they were involved with plotting, killing, and it was certainly a coup, the United States' first coup, and we saw it in Dallas. We saw it open spaces. It was enough to terrorize the nation. It was enough to create media panic, and it was enough to create all of the other problems that we remember about the Kennedy assassination. So I'm going to get into that, a little bit more about conspiracy theory, a little bit more about just what's going on. It's crazy. I mean, we're living in a state of madness here, and no one's helping to try and open up the conversation or at least clear the air of what is truly going on. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're watching Channel Zero, and we'll return. Have you noticed that well-known and controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored on the internet by corporate and political interests? This is Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero Radio. And in order to counter against the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digitalized playground called Aftermath.media. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring videos, movies, audio clips, archive shows, ebooks, e-magazines, documents, and so much more. Our news aggregator, Nucifer, provides current news relating to many of the topics we cover. We'll also be hosting other Ground Zero-friendly podcasts like Into the Paranormal with Jeremy Scott and The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. Aftermath.media has a social media platform along with a chat room to interact with many of our listeners. And about once a month, you can chat with me about anything. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are now available. The monthly subscription for Aftermath.media is only $9.99 a month. This includes exclusive access to our library and Ground Zero archive podcasts. If you're just interested in having access to the archive podcast, it's only $4.99 a month. So sign up today by going to Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media. Hey guys, it's Clyde. Listen, I want to talk to you very frankly about the increasing civil unrest we're seeing these days. You can't turn on the news without hearing about more riots, violence, looting, killings, lawlessness, and mayhem. We also have to be concerned about power outages, epidemics, and quarantines, along with natural disasters that break supply chains and cut off store access. Sadly, I think the worst is yet to come, and the crescendo will be quite painful. However, I want to focus your attention on what you can do to survive. Priority 1, in times like these, you have to make sure that you have enough food to eat, if and when the system falls apart. If you know me, you know I fully endorse My Patriot Supply. They're the only source I personally use and trust to get through these tough times ahead. You should too. Right now, you can save $100 off a 4-week emergency food supply of delicious, nutritious meals the whole family will love. Go to preparewithgroundzero.com. That's preparewithgroundzero.com to get your food kits today. The future is uncertain, and I urge you to prepare by going to preparewithgroundzero.com and get ready now. That's preparewithgroundzero.com.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to ancientlifeoil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to ancientlifeoil.com for great CBD. That's ancientlifeoil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Welcome back to Channel Zero. I'm Clyde Lewis. You know, as far back as 1963, when the Warren Commission first came out with their magic bullet theories and all the other crazy stuff they came up with about the Kennedy assassination, the word conspiracy theory or the conspiracy theorist was invented. Anyone who spoke ill of the Warren Commission and JFK's murder, saying that it was a conspiracy or there was more to it than just Lee Harvey Oswald, they were called conspiracy theorists. And I think that was the first time the CIA actually coined the phrase. And then, of course, the only rival time where conspiracy theorists were talking about injustices and wrongdoings was September 11th, which, of course, there was a trend for a lot of people to question the 9/11 Commission report, the version of events that led to the attacks in 2001 on New York and the Pentagon. So, in other words, most people believe in at least two major conspiracy theories, yet they generally remain a mark of disgrace, and they're being told that they're listening to lies by the media if they decide to, think outside the box. I mean, you look at President Trump's critics right now and how they're decrying his lack of respect for America's democratic system by refusal to concede to Joe Biden. Well, there's no constitutional law that says he has to do that. Doesn't mean, though, that it's mean-spirited. Doesn't mean that what he's doing is, considered, a bad play. But it'd be a good time, and I think it's a good time, to remind, people who are criticizing conspiracy theorists and those who look at the dark side aspect of America, and we look at the democratic system and how the democratic system has somehow failed us. I mean, it's like the national security state and what they're doing and how they play their games. I mean, you've heard the term deep state, and everybody says that that's an invention of Donald Trump, when in reality the deep state has been around since the times of Kennedy, plotting against the president, moving people, through, negating the vote, shutting down thoughts. I mean, from the beginning, when you look at official stories that are being produced by the government, especially in the Kennedy situation, you look at the lone nut communist ex-Marine with no apparent motive basically assassinated the president. And we're supposed to believe that. We're supposed to believe, that there is nothing to see, no more than just that guy plotting and killing the president. I mean, when you look around you and you look at security and you look at how secure we've been over the years, same thing with 9/11. I remember when 9/11 happened, one of my friends had told me, she said, well, she was in the military, and she said to me, she says, well, somebody got through security. Somebody was good enough to get through our security, because we have a lot of checks and balances to keep this from happening, and yet it happens. However, it's just difficult to try and express how hard it is now for those who certainly want to talk to you about theories outside the box, in the margins, because there are so many people now that will ridicule you, saying, well, there's nothing to see. But yet the media will spin conspiracies. They've been known to spin them from time to time. History books, when you read through them, and like I say, there's the random history that we deal with every day, where we say to ourselves that this is just random, whatever happens is random. And then we have conspiracy history, and you look at the history books, and they're not going to reveal a lot of the important information that has been withheld by the CIA, that's been in existence for years. We have been asking, they said, well, you're not going to see anything in your lifetime. Well, I mean, we've had a couple lifetimes to deal with, and they still haven't released the information. They still haven't released the information about the CIA and their plots to assassinate Castro, and some of which, the CIA, the CIA was involved with the mafia. So without this information, without any of this information coming to light, you look back and you're saying the Warren Commission didn't bring any of this up. They didn't know whether or not to question Oswald. They didn't know if Oswald had accomplices in Cuba. They didn't know who else may have been plotting against Kennedy. So, this is the thing. How was this information considered benign by the CIA? Downplaying its significance is just another proof of a cover-up. It was a cover-up that halted any further investigations into Oswald and his potential ties to Cuba or any of the other accomplices or the complications that came from that at all. So back then, a lot of this talk would be ridiculed as conspiracy theory, and still is. But it's conspiracy theory with teeth. Okay, that means that there's a lot to the conspiracy theory that needs to be investigated. Teeth. It has teeth that would wind up biting a lot of people in the ass, and it's obvious. Effective conspiracy theories do that, right? And this is why it's important, in my opinion, to watch how information flows and how it eventually reveals the truth, if you choose to accept the truth. Okay, we're always told that the truth shall set us free, but it pisses us off in the process. Some people don't like the uncomfortable truth. At no point in time have conspiracy theories been stigmatized than they are right now. You look at the 2016 election, and from there, we have had conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory that wind up being parapolitical conspiracy theories, which of course have become very popular. Some of them don't have any merit, but still they're worthy of discussion. So what conspiracies, when you look at conspiracy theories now, throughout history, a lot of them have been right. Some of them have been wrong. But the thing is, it's up to you to decide whether or not you're being fooled. It's up to you to decide whether or not you're being used. The media, they spin conspiracy theories all the time. It's just that now they are there to tell you which ones to believe in and which ones need a good fact-checking on Facebook. And they will be fact-checked on Facebook if you post something that certainly does not fit what they say are their community standards. So the problem we have here is the lack of an examination of the media's systemic failures. And I think maybe it's too late, I don't know, but I think now we need to draw attention to its actual role in society as a tool of mass persuasion on behalf of the ruling elite. The media tells you, well, we don't have much effect on people, but I think they do. They really do, because, you look back at the Warren Commission, you look back at the official doctrines of the Warren Commission, and you look back at the shadow governments, and you look back at the obvious hidden stuff, the covered up stuff, and you realize that they will go to no end. First it was the dog and pony show, but now it seems to be chemotherapy. Looking back at the 2016 election, you look back at the 4-year term of President Trump, and you say to yourself, it went from being a dog and pony show to a literal act of chemotherapy, where the media and, of course, one side saw President Trump as a cancer. And so they were willing to do anything. The ends justified the means. They would use anything in the media to try and bring him down. They would use anything in the media to try and expose him as being either racist or tyrant or whatever. And regardless of what you may think of Trump, and regardless of how irresponsible he may have been, and regardless of all this, there was no way. And I was always saying there's no way that this man could have been or could have done anything that he already had done that certainly had been ridiculed or exposed. And when it was, it just made it more difficult for him to be a president. When you have a media that's been hounding him, and you have a media that's influenced social media, and what it is it's just covering up for the mistakes they made and for the harm they did to the country before the 2016 election, before all this went down. The idea that a media has stood up and decided they're going to be resistance fueled, And that's the thing that bothers me, is that you shouldn't be, if you're a tool of the media, or if you're someone who's supposed to be a person with dignity, objectivity, you don't say that you're part of the resistance. You don't say that you're bringing down a government or a president. You don't tell people, that certain people are liars or cowards. You let the public decide if they're liars or cowards or whatever. I mean, the term conspiracy theory now has been weaponized. It's turned into a weapon. Its use is so ubiquitous that it automatically implies unconvincing improbability and its worthiness of dismissal. And it's becoming harder and harder for people like me and others to bring you information independently, information outside of the media circle. It's becoming harder to do so because we are becoming examples. We're being held to standards that the media doesn't even apply themselves to. They have their standards, they have their agendas, and we're not included in those agendas. And I'm just wondering, how and when did it become so widely dispersed in the cultural lexicon to say that a conspiracy theory is equivalent to a lie, or that a conspiracy theorist is someone who continues to push lies? I mean, in the 1970s, the CIA had been a subject of numerous scandals with disclosures about its activities ranging from meddling in the affairs of sovereign countries to administering mind control experiments to citizens like MK Ultra, doing gain of function exercises we've talked before on Ground Zero. See, the revelations about all of this clandestine influence on the press was yet another divulgence. Remember the church hearings back in 1977, where they revealed through a 1976 Freedom of Information Act request by the New York Times, basically saying that there were agents, CIA agents that were in the newsrooms. It was called Project Mockingbird. But now they're more than happy. Media outlets are more than happy to tell you that they have consultants and reporters and those on the payroll. They're either former CIA or acting CIA. So, I mean, it's just another example, I believe, of the deep state or the CIA's efforts to engineer public opinion with media bias and their forms of disinformation, basically ordering its recruits to employ propaganda assets to negate or refute the attacks of critics against the media, critics against a leadership or someone in leadership. I mean, you look at book reviews, you look at feature articles, you look at movie reviews, and they immediately find themselves supporting these new agendas and these new ideas that place us ever so closer to being a country like every other country. Nothing unique about what we do, nothing unique about what we say. We're all becoming homogenized and watered down for this reset that they're planning on bringing us. And I can't emphasize more of the reset and what it entails and what it certainly is going to do with legacy systems, the way we think, the way we act, the way we process things as Americans. It's all going to change. And I have to admit to you today that, what is happening is going to be so abrupt and so crazy that you're not going to believe most of what is going to be said in the next 6 months. You're not going to believe that this is the America that you grew up in. You're not going to believe any of it. It's going to be very abrupt. It's going to be very surprising and very shocking to a lot of people. But see, that's the thing, is that so was the Kennedy assassination. So was COVID-19. So is 9/11. I mean, these are things that are shocks to the system to bring us all together to demand some change that we probably don't even want or don't even know we're getting into. So we're going to return with more from Channel Zero right here. And I'm Clyde Lewis. Thank you for joining me this morning, and we'll be back. Have you noticed that well-known and controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored on the internet by corporate and political interests? This is Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero Radio. And in order to counter against the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digitalized playground called Aftermath.media. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring videos, movies, audio clips, archive shows, ebooks, e-magazines, documents, and so much more. Our news aggregator, Nucifer, provides current news relating to many of the topics we cover. We'll also be hosting other Ground Zero-friendly podcasts like Into the Paranormal with Jeremy Scott and The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. Aftermath.media has a social media platform along with a chat room to interact with many of our listeners. And about once a month, you can chat with me about anything. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are now available. The monthly subscription for Aftermath.media is only $9.99 a month. This includes exclusive access to our library and Ground Zero archive podcasts. If you're just interested in having access to the archive podcast, it's only $4.99 a month. So sign up today by going to Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. Listen, I want to talk to you very frankly about the increasing civil unrest we're seeing these days. You know, you can't turn on the news without hearing about more riots, violence, looting, killings, lawlessness, and mayhem. We also have to be concerned about power outages, epidemics, and quarantines, along with natural disasters that break supply chains and cut off store access. Sadly, I think the worst is yet to come, and the crescendo will be quite painful. However, I want to focus your attention on what you can do to survive. Priority 1, in times like these, you have to make sure that you have enough food to eat, if and when the system falls apart. If you know me, you know I fully endorse My Patriot Supply. They're the only source I personally use and trust to get through these tough times ahead. You should too. Right now, you can save $100 off a 4-week emergency food supply of delicious, nutritious meals the whole family will love. Go to preparewithgroundzero.com. That's preparewithgroundzero.com to get your food kits today. The future is uncertain, and I urge you to prepare by going to preparewithgroundzero.com and get ready now. That's preparewithgroundzero.com. All right, welcome back. Welcome back to Channel Zero. I was just looking over some of my notes and trying to understand, you know, where we are right now in America. And I think, you know, and another thing too is you look at, you know, a lot of the things that you know, America has been through, the United States has been through, and what it is I think that we need to understand about, you know, why we're in the situation we're in. I think it runs deeper. It runs a lot deeper than COVID-19. I think it runs a lot deeper than, you know, just basically is we're in this time where I could call it like the big roulette wheel. And you spin it and you're hoping that you're going to win. You're hoping that you're going to win against the House, but the House wins. It always wins. But you got to find a way to beat the House. You got to find a way to understand how the House operates. And I know it's difficult for some people, and I know that it's easy to lay a lot of our visible frustrations at the feet of this COVID lockdown situation or the political polarization that we've experienced since the 2016 election. But as I was saying before, I mean, we're looking at cover-up. We're looking at a psyop. It's a psychological operation. It's a well-oiled psychological operation. But, you know, I think the real driver right now and what I'm feeling right now is this feeling of unfairness. If I can say anything today that would mean anything to you, it would have to be fair to people. Be fair to them and understand that you don't know what's going on in their lives. You don't know what they've gone through. You don't know what they're going through. The status quo right now, in what I see, it's been increasingly rigged to benefit those who I see are insiders or those who have power, those who have the money, they don't feel any remorse for what they're doing. The leaders that continue to push these draconian, unfair, arbitrary rules and mandates on people. And when you try to talk about it and you try to say something about it, people say, well, you're being irresponsible. You're trying to kill my loved ones. I mean, you get a lot. You get a lot of, I've had it before. I mean, I've tried to explain to people, where I stand. I try to explain to people that, no, I'm not trying to tell you to be irresponsible, not socially distanced, not wear your mask. I'm just telling you that you have to be fair. We have to be fair with each other. Not one chart or one conspiracy theory or one idea is going to predict our future. We have to take the future, or we have to somehow steer the present into a future that's going to be a good future. And not one president or one leader is going to help us do this. I mean, we're on a broken ladder, and it's making us unable to be mobile, unable to be with our families, unable to be in a situation where, we can feel free. And they say, well, it's just a little bit of setback in order to get to the end. But, we've had setback after setback after setback. And I've always said, we're complying as much as we can. We do our best to comply. And if you don't comply, you reap the consequences of noncompliance. You are punished for noncompliance. And this is where I completely shake my head and say, I don't know of anybody in my circle or around me that doesn't comply with the mask mandate, that doesn't comply with the social distancing mandate, that doesn't, I don't know what they do in their bathrooms. I hope they wash their hands. I hope they sanitize their hands. We do our best with what we have to comply. And yet they tell us that people aren't complying enough. And they tell us that this is why we have 200,000 or more dead, because of the fact that people are not complying. But I say we are. You can't go into a store without wearing a mask. You can't go into a public building without wearing a mask. And sometimes they have these arbitrary rules that they want to push on you. And it's just difficult. And so I ask you, is this a fair system? I'm feeling it's not. It's a reality. It's basically a roulette reel, like I said, that's being rigged. And I think only those who are naive, I think the ones that are naive believe that what we're in right now is a fair game, because it's not fair. Those who know that the system is rigged against them, those who know that they have zero power or control or capital demand in unrigged game, they have to finagle their way through life. They have to, know how to talk, know how to deal, make deals, know how to get around these problems. But see, that's the thing, is that those who can't, those who don't know how to do this, they feel a sense of frustration with this patently unfair system that's touted as the fairest system in the entire world. I don't know how we can say that anymore. I can't say, that the system is fair. I can no longer say that a lot of you, I can't say that a lot of you are being treated fairly. You who are watching me right now. In fact, I can tell you honestly, I found out today, and I don't want to go into it, that I am being treated unfairly for some things. And it's going to be hard. Hard for my business, hard for the ability for us to continue what we're doing. You know, we've grown because of you. We've grown because of your support. And someone doesn't like to see us grow. Someone, there's somebody out there or a group out there or whoever they are, they don't want to see us grow. And so they're going to do everything in their power to keep us from growing. And I don't know who they are. I don't know their names. I don't know what they're plotting. I don't like to make myself the news and be paranoid. But I would say the key takeaway here is the unfairness is not going to be limited to the economy. The unfairness is not going to be limited to society. The unfairness is not going to be limited to politics. It's going to be manifesting in a lot of realms, in a lot of places where people, it's not going to be just about frustration with domestic issues. It's going to be frustration over the new global economic order. And that's going to be the source of unfairness. You either get the vaccine or you don't get to eat. You get the vaccine or you don't get to buy anything, you don't get to sell anything. And it does sound like something that's right out of the Bible, something that's right out of the apocalypse. And for 25 years, I'd been talking about it, but I never realized how painful it would be. I never realized how much strength that you have to gather from day to day to make your world happen, to at least keep a modicum of self-respect and dignity, especially now during the holidays. And it's hard. It's hard for a lot of people, and I understand this. It's going to be hard on me. It's going to be hard on my staff. And I don't want it to be hard on you. I don't want it to be difficult for you. I'm hoping that all of you are able to somehow survive, that you can, at least keep your chin up. And then, it's weird because, there have been times where people have not understood why I get behind the things I do, why I promote the things I do. We were talking about the other night, my staff and I were talking about preparedness. We were talking about food preparedness. And we were talking about what we're doing to prepare for the inevitable. And that includes everything. It includes health problems. It includes lockdowns. It includes shutdowns. And sure, you plan it. You talk about it. You weigh it in your mind. But once you experience it, it's a whole different ballgame. Once you're in the middle of it, it's a whole different ballgame. So everything that we had talked about and planned and thought about is now coming to pass. And so when I tell people about preparing with food, or I say go to preparewithgroundzero.com, or I tell people that it's important that you subscribe to aftermath.media, I do it because I know how lucky I have been for 25 years being able to broadcast a program like Ground Zero and been able to do it without something getting in the way of what I do. But COVID-19 is becoming a nuisance. Lockdowns and these draconian arbitrary rules are becoming a problem. And while I'm not directly rebelling against any of it, mistakes are made, accidents happen, and there are people that don't want to hear excuses for your accidents. They don't want to hear excuses for why you fail. They just know that they want to find an excuse to make your life hell. They want to find an excuse to bring you down. And I know many of you, and I'm talking directly at you, many of you have experienced this. Many of you feel frustrated. Many of you want so badly to get back on top. Many want so bad. I mean, I saw a letter one time. It was a week before. A friend of mine named Adam, who runs a restaurant, wrote an open letter to the governor of the state and basically saying that his business is not going to be able to recover. And it was about 2 weeks ago or a week ago, my wife and I were eating at his establishment, and he had turkey, and he had stuffing, and he had cranberry sauce and vegetables. and he had it available. And I said, boy, that sounds good. I think I'll order that. And he ordered it. We ordered it. We sat down. We ate it. It was an amazing meal. And I said to him, I says, this is an amazing meal. I said, thank you so much. And he says, yeah, Clyde. He says, too bad no one's going to be able to eat it. And I looked at him and I says, why do you say that? And he said, because they're closing down my store. They're closing down my restaurant, and it's going to be closed down for another 4 weeks. And I don't think I'll be able to rebuild my business after another 4-week lockdown. Because he says, you're ordering food, you're ordering drinks, you're ordering all these things. And you have to plan on crowds, you have to plan on people to show up. And if you can't plan on them, you have all this food that rots, and all this food that goes bad that you've paid for because they've shut down businesses. So I don't know what you need to do, a court order or a lawyer or whatever, to get whatever you need back. But I don't know, at the moment where I'm sitting and where I'm talking about is that it's going to be a time of transition. It's going to be a time of shocking transition for a lot of people. It's going to be the time where we're going to feel like refugees in our own country. We're going to feel like that we can't go back to our homes, that we're going to have to move away, that we're going to have to find new locations to live, that we're going to have to find places to avoid crime. But then it's just going to get to the point where it's going to move. Everything is going to move like a scourge across this country unless we take the matters into our hands and try to understand and meet together and talk about the issues that we so desperately need to address. And it all starts with a theory. It all starts with those speaking out of the margins. It all starts with those who whisper to one another that something is not right, that something doesn't feel right, that the system has betrayed us, that the system is ignoring us, and that we need to develop a system independent of what the agendas are, independent of what is happening. And I sincerely hope that this Thanksgiving, we all think about what we're thankful for and we're all grateful for what we do still have, and hopefully strive for getting more, regardless of COVID-19. And we need to be fair to one another, because unfairness is what is ruling us now. Unfairness. We'll be back with more Channel Zero. Don't go away. Have you noticed that well-known and controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored on the internet by corporate and political interests? This is Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero Radio. And in order to counter against the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digitalized playground called Aftermath.media. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring videos, movies, audio clips, archive shows, ebooks, e-magazines, documents, and so much more. Our news aggregator, Newsifer, provides current news relating to many of the topics we cover. We'll also be hosting other Ground Zero-friendly podcasts like Into the Paranormal with Jeremy Scott and The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. Aftermath.media has a social media platform along with a chat room to interact with many of our listeners. And about once a month, you can chat with me about anything. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are now available. The monthly subscription for Aftermath.media is only $9.99 a month. This includes exclusive access to our library and Ground Zero Archive podcasts. If you're just interested in having access to the archive podcast, it's only $4.99 a month. So sign up today by going to Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a six-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to ancientlifeoil.com for great CBD. That's ancientlifeoil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. Listen, I want to talk to you very frankly about the increasing civil unrest we're seeing these days. You know, you can't turn on the news without hearing about more riots, violence, looting, killings, lawlessness, and mayhem. We also have to be concerned about power outages, epidemics, and quarantines, along with natural disasters that break supply chains and cut off store access. Sadly, I think the worst is yet to come, and the crescendo will be quite painful. However, I want to focus your attention on what you can do to survive. Priority one, in times like these, you have to make sure that you have enough food to eat, if and when the system falls apart. If you know me, you know I fully endorse My Patriot Supply. They're the only source I personally use and trust to get through these tough times ahead. You should too. Right now, you can save $100 off a 4-week emergency food supply of delicious, nutritious meals the whole family will love. Go to preparewithgroundzero.com. That's preparewithgroundzero.com to get your food kits today. The future is uncertain, and I urge you to prepare by going to preparewithgroundzero.com and get ready now. That's preparewithgroundzero.com. Welcome back to Channel Zero. I'm Clyde Lewis. 400 years ago, the Pilgrims gathered together and they had their first Thanksgiving. And we're heading into Thanksgiving tomorrow. You look back at what the Pilgrims had to go through and how, many of them starved to death because many of them, didn't know what to do in the New World. And they didn't have any, they had no idea what direction to go to, really. But, now there are so many people over the years that have wanted to cancel Thanksgiving. They want to cancel Christmas. And it looks like, several states are going out of their way to cancel Thanksgiving or at least place strict limits on the number of family members you can invite to your own home to share a meal. And like I said in the beginning of this program, look, in Oregon, where we are right now, people can come over to your house and smoke crack, and that's okay. But if you're caught sharing a Thanksgiving meal with 7 family members, you could face 30 days in jail and a $1,250 fine. You can go into buildings every day with masks and be separated and do everything you can to be as thorough as possible to avoid the COVID spread. And all you need to do is make one mistake, or something where someone sees it as an infraction, and you can be out. You can be forced out of your job. You can be forced out of what have you. California, you look at what they're doing there. They say you can host no more than 2 other families, but everyone must stay outside with guests seated 6 feet apart in all directions. The state of California will graciously allow your house guests to enter your home, but only to use the bathroom. Meanwhile, the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, was caught dining out maskless with a dozen friends and lobbyists at a birthday party the other day. In New Jersey, Governor Murphy was caught doing the same thing, even though he has checkpoints in Newark. Since March, going back to March, when we were first being told to lock down, governors have simply been ruling by decree to shut down businesses and define who is essential and stop people from earning a living, even though the courts have deemed these lockdowns unconstitutional. But governors are ignoring the courts and imposing lockdowns anyway. They're pushing people out of businesses and out of office complexes. And we see the results now, right? 11 million out of work, record consumer debt, corporate debt, government debt, and a pandemic that is still not under control despite all the restrictions that we've been given. It took a 50% death rate from disease and hunger in Plymouth, in the winter at Plymouth in 1620, to convince the Pilgrims that controlling people wasn't saving lives or creating prosperity. They ended up, all the controls they had, all of the strict rules and religious rules didn't help matters. But they had to learn something. They had to learn what saves lives. They had to learn what keeps people happy. They had to learn what keeps people thriving, and that is individual liberty. individual liberty. When authoritarianism is not strict. Where communism or a form of communism does not work. Now more than ever, people need the freedom to make their own decisions, to decide for themselves if they want to open their businesses, earn a living, and have your family over just to have a Thanksgiving meal. You know, if these basic freedoms, which we all took for granted just 1 year ago, seem out of reach, maybe we need to look back at what the Pilgrims went through when they tried to control each other and how they all got sick. A lot of them got sick and died. They hopped on a tiny wooden boat, crossed the Atlantic at great personal risk, just to have a shot of building a free society, to have a life of their own design without being told what to do. You know, today, it's not as nearly as dangerous or difficult to live, even with a pandemic. Just, you know, going out from the city goes a long way. And it doesn't hurt to settle with a few of your neighbors that aren't ready to turn you into the government like Gestapo or Stasi for celebrating Thanksgiving. When people think that your personal liberty is a threat to them, when they think that what you're doing is malicious because you make mistakes or you allow people into your life, it makes sense to at least consider the possibility that at some point your home or your country, the county, the state you live in may not be welcome to you anymore. And that's sad. Because I'm an American. I love my country. I love what I do. I love the moments. I love the moments you and I have had together. I'm grateful for TalkCast PDX for allowing me this moment with you. I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for all of you that have supported me these 25, going on 26 years of broadcasting my show, Ground Zero. I thank you for the subscriptions you've had to Aftermath.media. I thank you for purchasing food from preparewithgroundzero.com. I thank you because my family, we're trying to hold together in these times. We're trying to have a positive attitude, and it's difficult because of the basic freedoms that I feel that we're being stripped of. Walking on eggshells is not a way to live in the United States of America. It just isn't. And if I sound like I'm choking up, it's because I am choking up. I'm choking up because back when I was a Boy Scout and I learned to fold the flag correctly, and I learned what patriotism was all about, and I learned about what my country was and what it stood for, and how everybody around me was living a good life, and we worshiped God the way we wanted to. We had faith, and we did what we did. But we never thought we'd see the day where we would have leaders that were unfair, unjust, making us unhappy, and keeping us in lockdown. Well, no matter what you think of the virus, no matter what you think politically, what is going on here is an injustice to America. It's an injustice to you and me. It doesn't make any sense, and that's the whole damn problem. I love you all for joining me today. I love you for hearing me out. I hope we can have a great Thanksgiving. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. And I just want you to remember us in your prayers, please. There's so many things going on behind the scenes here that you wouldn't believe. But we're holding together as best we can thanks to you. Thank you so much for watching today at Channel Zero. We'll see you soon.